Welcome to the transmission for gene key 17. Now, this is a very logical gene key that actually gets transformed through the heart center. This gene key will be in operation during the eclipse season. It's initiated right at that moment. So if you are born during the eclipse, then chances are you have gene key 17 as your life work. This is part of the ring of humanity and part of our evolution. So you're going to want to tune into this. Gene key 17 represents the architects of our future. So if you're listening to this and this is you, or you feel called to this because we have all 64 codes inside of us, use this time of the reboot of this wormhole in the eclipse to actually envision a new world. Like, what would work for society, for humanity, where it's a win-win, all beings win? That's a great question to ask. And Gene Key 17 is up for the task. So let's unpack it a little bit. The shadow is opinions. We all have them. The gift is farsightedness, and this is perspective taking. And really, I love the city. The ultimate highest frequency is omniscience. Having sight of everything at the same time. That's the ability to hold paradox. Because if everything has truth in it, you must hold it all. And we can't oftentimes understand it until we see with a new mind. And then we can't explain it because language is in duality and it's determined. And what we are pointing to cannot be described. That's like God. So really, omniscience is God, having the mind of God. So you're welcome to a very powerful gene key. It's called the eye. So let's think about the third eye, because the pituitary gland is the center of gene key 17. Now, we just came out of gene key 25 and the heart. So let's understand that the heart is the ruler here, even though the activation is happening in the third eye and the crown. So what closes the third eye down more than anything else? Well, thinking that you know. And opinions are thinking that you know. Opinions are judgments. Now, let's break this down, because if chances are you're a spiritually awakened woman listening to this, and so a nuance that we might be able to support with is the difference between your experience and a judgment. A judgment is about how it is for other people. And naming your experience is what's happening to you in the midst of that experience, maybe for someone else. So if you're seeing something that's happening, instead of saying, you are being this way, which is a judgment, and you actually don't know, but it is your experience. So my body feels constricted when you said that thing, XYZ. Do you see the difference? Like, it's inarguable. When you speak about your own experience, it's inarguable. But if I can argue with it, it's a judgment, it's an opinion. And opinions are sometimes really fun to have if we hold them lightly, because they're not true. At least they're not 100% true, because nothing is 100% true. We only see in part, and we only see from the lens from which we are seeing. So if we delude ourselves as a defense mechanism to experiencing fear and uncertainty, then we start to close down our life and we live pretty myopically. And that's some of the religions, like fundamentalist religions like Judaism, Christianity, and Muslim religions. The fundamentalist people do not want to hear anything that is not in alignment with what they already believe. That to me means that they are completely uncertain about their belief. And they're holding on to it as a last ditch effort to feel safe. And so when I understand it like that, I can have some compassion, but I don't want to argue with it, because I'm really arguing with someone's deep-seated need to feel safe. And that's them for their journey. And unfortunately, people will kill and hurt others and exclude others to only have their own view propped up. So as we're awakening in consciousness, we are expected to also awaken in our personal growth. You know, it's states and stages. It's not just having a state of enlightenment or, you know, a flash of inspiration or divine light. It is also being that in everyday life, in your personal growth, growing yourself up, maturing yourself. Because when we do that, that really opens us up to the gift frequency. We move out of having so many damn opinions about stuff we just don't know. You know, I love like all this stuff on YouTube. It's so self-fulfilling. Like someone has an experience or someone has an idea and they share it as if they observed it and it's true and they were there. And then everyone copies that and says, well, it's true because that person said it, but that person was just saying their opinion. So we really get to cut through the crap. And cutting through the crap enables us to see with new eyes, to open our third eye, to see something we haven't seen. So hold it lightly, hold it softly, hold it in your heart. Those are just like super mental constructs. And once we awaken enough and we go into our heart and we really meet the shadow, Gene Key 25, we go into our suffering, then we start to become more human. This is in the ring of humanity. And then this opens up our field of perception, the doors of perception, to quote Jim Morrison, right? We don't need to use plant medicine. We can, but we can get there just by being softer in what we think is true. And I love the Socratic hack that Byron Katie uses of, is it true? Can I absolutely know it's true? And how do I feel when I think that thought? Who would I be without that thought? And could be the opposite, the 180 degrees be true or truer? Well, the answer is freaking yes, right? Because it's true. We live in duality. So it's always going to mean that the equal and opposite is also true. So people who construct their world on being hierarchical and that one thing is true are completely missing that they live in duality. Obviously, I could go on and on about this because I'm a lawyer and I know a lot of people. And I was one of them for sure, because I remember wanting to be super safe with my fixed opinions. God bless me and everyone who occupies that. And really, you know, when you go on the spiritual path, you got to meet your heart, and your heart doesn't give a shit what you believe. You know, it just doesn't care, because your heart is your heart. Grief is grief. Loss is loss. Suffering is suffering. It doesn't matter if you try to mentally construct it, because the heart's just going to cry anyway. And if you don't allow that to, then probably what happens is your body takes it. Gene Key 25, you become constricted. Your entire body is wound up and tight. You can feel it in your shoulders, your neck, your jaw, your gut. You can feel it. So your body is indicating to you, look, you're tightly wound. You have beliefs that are BS, that are just not checked out. You have beliefs that were passed down to you from other people. And, you know, whatever, it may have served you at some time, but now you are waking up and you need to see with the mind of God. And the mind of God is vast. It should shatter your beliefs. And if it doesn't shatter you, then it isn't the mind of God. It's some other thing that you think you know. Gene Key 17 is just relentless. So I hope you'll forgive me. It's very relentless. It's very like exacting, which is why I like it so much. So the gift of that farsightedness, when you do open and soften, you actually see more of the pattern. And that seeing more of the pattern allows you to weave in and through the pattern, right? Like imagine if you were in Canyonlands, the great national park in the United States. There's a park called the Maze, and it's not even mapped out, I don't believe. There's just places no people have been. That's exciting to think about, the wild still existing in our modern society. But imagine like you were a helicopter flying over the maze. You would get an idea of what it's like on the ground level by being able to see the perspective. And the Buddhists call that maintain the view. So you're living your life maintaining the view up here. It's like you're bilocating, and that's what this farsightedness gift is. Like you get to run your life and live your life with the benefits of sight because you're actually keeping your perspective high. But we're living in granular life. We're like a pinpoint on a map. We exist here. And then omniscience is the mind of God, and that's just blowing up, creating a nuclear explosion of who you think you are and all your beliefs. It's shattering. I once spoke to a man who was the bodyguard of Osho, and he had experienced through Osho like 8 years. He would just like sit outside of Osho's room. He apparently spent a lot of time in his room and meditating and whatever. And this person just sat outside and sometimes would go in and talk to Osho and have conversations. And he told me that, he goes, the light that all spiritual seekers really, really want, is like the light is shattering. Like some people can't handle it. It can make you go mad if you're not ready for it. Woo! So imagine that. Like, how do we get ready for it? I think Gene Key 25 gives us the roadmap, and that is to go deeply into our suffering and mature ourselves through our suffering, through our heart space, to grow in universal love. And then when that shattering happens in the city level of Gene Key 17, there's really nothing that it shatters because you are already shattered. You already gave up the identity of who you think you are. You already stopped preserving your life through defense mechanisms. You just allowed yourself to be shattered. And I'm going to end with there. What a powerful eclipse message. So if you happen to be shattered in this eclipse, allow it to happen. Break it down, because you know what? You're going to come back together. Everything in the world is rebirthed and recreated. And we are in just a cycle of life. Hopefully, understanding more and more, awakening more and more, so that one day we know who and what we really are. So let's dedicate this transmission to the merits. May all beings benefit from the merits of our efforts.